We're joined today by Shannon, and we're talking about something great. It's an initiative called 40 Days, 40 Items. It's a 40-day challenge of collecting items in your home that maybe you don't really need anymore, that could go to somebody else. And in the end, it's going to benefit Diabetes Canada. Tell us a little bit about this amazing initiative.
Yeah, well, thanks for speaking with me this morning. This is actually our third year of running it, so we've had a lot of success the last couple of years. Really, it was a creative idea, a new twist on helping to encourage people to do something good, to also declutter their house, their closets, and kind of do it at this time of year, which is getting close to spring cleaning time, but also sort of playing upon the certainly the Christian tradition of giving something up for 40 days pre-Easter. And so in this particular kind of twist of it, it's give up something that is in your house that maybe could go somewhere else for good and help raise money for a good cause.
Now we're a little bit late into the game here. We've got until March 24th, but that doesn't mean you can't just start adding things to a box right now, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's really the spirit of the idea. It's just a new way of doing things. You see, sometimes for a lot of us, if we say, "Hey, it's time for me to clear out my closet or to do some decluttering," some of us will attack it for one day and go at it, and that's great. But for other of us, that can be a little overwhelming because it's like, "Oh, like where do I start? How do I do it?" So the notion here is just like, hey, rather than feel like you have to do this task in a 2 hour time and it's going to be maybe stressful or too much effort or something. It's like just spread it out. Go one time a day. Take a walk through your house. Say, do I have any textiles, clothing, reusable, resellable items that I could get out of this house and declutter my own house and put it up for a good cause. So yeah, you could do it for 40 days. You could do it for 20 days. You could do it for whatever works well. But it's just kind of a different way of getting people to do it. And you could do it with family members. You could do it with your kids. It could be like, every evening, let's pick out one item and put it in the box or a bag. And then after 40 days have gone by, you've probably put aside quite a bit and you're ready to schedule a pickup or to find one of our donation bins to do a drop off.
And hey, if you get like a school or a church or something even larger involved, the abundance of clothing and whatnot would be absolutely amazing.
Yeah, even better, of course. Yeah. I mean, we think about individuals, households, but you're right. There's lots of organizations that actually, for us with Diabetes Canada, we work with large organizations as well who do sort of like those sort of community drives, and we are delighted and happy to pick up very large quantities. We've got large trucks, so we can handle all of that. Whether it's an individual household or a community who's doing some sort of clothing drive and they want to do it for good and hey, helping people living affected by diabetes is one of the great causes in this country.
Let's dig a little bit deeper into that. You said it is a great cause. It's going towards Diabetes Canada and some of the things that you're doing there and some of the programming. And I know it's also going to go to support some kids that get to go to camp in the summer. Share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite aspects of it. I mean, of course, any health charity is doing sponsoring important research, and certainly at Diabetes Canada, that is very true. But in addition, we really help people who are living and affected daily with living with diabetes. In the case of kids, a lot, there are young kids who get type 1 diabetes, their insulin deficit, and they have to be taking daily insulin shots, etc. So there are camps that we help sponsor across the country, all across Canada, where kids have the ability to go to a camp with other kids who also have type 1 diabetes and really get a chance to just be a kid and just live with their peers, and of course do it under all the proper supervision because they are type 1 diabetes kids. So it's one of the wonderful ideas. It's one of the wonderful uses of the funds that do get generated is to give these kids a fun time for a week or two at a great summer camp across the country.
Now, most people know the difference between type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes, but for those who are out there that may be listening going, I don't actually know anything about diabetes or type 1 or type 2, can you just share a little bit more in depth about diabetes?
Sure. Well, I mean, I don't want to try to portray myself as being anywhere close to the medical expert on it. And by the way, certainly encourage people to go to our website, Diabetes Canada, or for the decluttering, declutter.diabetes.ca, and learn more about it. But at a high level, there's basically two types. There's type one and type two. Type one is what a lot of people think about historically. That was the whole people who were insulin deficient. This was, the great Canadians of Banting and Best who worked to figure out what the problem was and how to solve it, which was insulin, and realizing that the in this case someone with type one diabetes was insulin insufficient, and therefore getting the injections of insulin, and that was over 100 years ago, and Canadians brought that to the world, and have saved, literally millions of lives through that, with people still today unsolved. But insulin helps those people manage their type 1 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes, it's similar but different, of course, and therefore a different label, and people can read about that. That often comes people, typically at the adult stage of life. It's a different, technical one where the body's just not reacting the same way to insulin and such. So, as I said, I'm far from the medical expert, but this is why, people should always be getting their health checkups, working with their doctors, doing those tests, and making sure that they're good, whether they're dealing with this health issue or something else. And we have a wonderful medical community in Canada, of course, that can help everybody with that. And Diabetes Canada is just part of that network and part of helping people out.
For sure. Going back to the initiative and the challenge, you said this is the third year. In previous years, what have the results been like from previous years in the 40 days, 40 items challenge?
Yeah, well, it's kind of anecdotal, really, because we don't have people mark it per se and say this is in regards to the 40-day challenge. So it's anecdotal, but we have certainly heard feedback from many people who are donors who have said, "Hey, I participated in this," and they kind of like the spin on it. So a lot of it is just anecdotal that way. That we've just gotten feedback from some people saying, "Oh, you kind of gave me a new way of thinking about it." Because as I said, for some people it could be a little overwhelming to go like, "Oh, that's a lot of work," or how am I going to find the 2 or 3 hours? And it's like, hey, you don't need to do it in 2 or 3 hours. You can take your time and just do it, because it's not time sensitive. It's not like some other things that would just say, hey, if you don't do it by here, it's too late. It's not that type of drive or that type of idea. So it's just really that way. So we've just received really good feedback from people that said, hey, I like the alternative way of thinking of how I can declutter my household, and do it at a time of year where we're kind of coming out of winter, and kind of energizing for people to think of an activity that helps bridge them to spring.
For sure. You mentioned it a little bit earlier in the interview, the website and where people can find out more information for those who are interested in learning more. How can they go about doing that?
Yeah, so we always encourage people to check out the website for all the information, especially about what you specifically can and cannot donate. There are only certain items we can monetize, and that's, in the end, that's the objective, is to monetize the donations. So you can read all about it. Of course, they must be items that you believe could be having a second life. We ultimately put those through thrift stores, secondhand thrift shops. So obviously they have to be, useful, repurposed, something that somebody else would look at and say, hey, I'll give that, that's a great price, and I'll give that another life or second life. So you have to do your own sort of judgment on things like that. But all that information is on declutter.diabetes.ca, including when and if we could do a direct household pickup right at your own household, or where the closest bins might be. So you can check all that information out 24/7, and make your own booking right off the website if you want to, and if that works out for you.
So really are no excuses because someone will come right to your place and potentially pick it up.
It doesn't get much easier, does it?
For sure. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. We truly appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Colleen.